Recording going. And it's working. Hi, everybody. I'm Malika Albrecht, the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. Welcome to our Thursday book launch, which we've been doing for 5 years now, guys. This is awesome. We've had Mike before, and I am really glad to invite Mike Jennings back again. We are celebrating not one, but two books tonight. Not only is it amazing poetry, but we also have some prose. And I feel bad for people that missed the prequel to actual recording because good conversation. I know Karen and I were both pleased. Storytelling. I mean, it's not a surprise that someone gifted with words would also use those words with storytelling. Born in the French Quarter of New Orleans and growing up in East Texas and the deserts of the southwestern Iran before graduating from University of Pennsylvania as an undergraduate and then also Syracuse University as a graduate fellow. Michael Jennings is the author. Actually, it's probably more than 12 collections.
It's now 16.
That's what I was going to say. This is an old bio. I just realized that it's how it's speaking. Holy smokes. Tonight, we're going to be celebrating two of his books. And I just have to say that one of the benefits of doing these readings is that I've been able to meet people and keep in touch with them. And Michael has been one of those. We'll be hearing from Heat and Hunger, a poet's log, and that is the cover of Sue. I just realized I probably should have made it so I can show them. I might see if I can't do that a little bit later.
I can show them in a minute.
Oh, fabulous. And I'm going to make you co-host because I just realized we talked about doing that and I don't think I did.
I don't know what that means.
When it comes up, just click it and that means you can share screen. And then we're also doing new and selected poems, the look back, landscapes, and elegies. I want to welcome Michael Jennings here tonight. I know y'all, if you haven't heard him read, y'all are in for a big treat.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Do I do anything to? Okay.
Yep. First, you're good.
Okay. First, I want to thank Malika, who does wonderful things. It's my favorite host, my favorite place to read. And I'd like to thank all of you who have tuned in, even though I can't see many of you. When I'm going to aim at about 40 minutes if I don't dawdle, if that's okay. When I was an undergraduate and just discovering poetry, several books of then contemporary poets I kind of fell in love with. And one of them was Louis Simpson's Pulitzer Prize winning book, At the End of the Open Road, which I believe ends with a passage that says, "This is what the pioneers looked for, shading their eyes against the sun, a murmur of serious life." Well, this book, if I can see it, I don't know if I can, is it all in? With a wonderful painting by my friend Mark Rausch, the look back. This contains most of the murmurings of seriousness in my life. And this book, painting by my friend Daryl Hutto, kind of a wonderful painting. This is not Sue. Sue was on the other book, but this is someone a little meatier than Sue. And Daryl is also the painter of the wolves behind me overlooking this sing-along. Yeah, let me see. I want to start, I think, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the notion of the dream time, time before time. Well, for me, that manifests itself when I was dropped from East Texas into the deserts of southwestern Iran when I was about 10 years old. And the second place that I lived there uh, was really magical and quite formative. And I'm going to read just a small passage about that place called Ancient Mountains. But we didn't return to the refinery in Abadan, once the largest in the world, but to the oil fields themselves, known collectively as fields, and our town of Masjid-e Suleiman, known as MIS, where one flew in low in a tiny six-seat company dove, as they were called, and became instantly entranced by the bleached sandstone, sun-scoured, sun-scarred, jagged old mountains. It was like some first world, dramatically without topsoil, but with mountains small enough to imagine climbing. A slightly drunken rock world, tilting this way and that, with some broad valleys between. In fact, geologically, they were young mountains, the foothills of the Zagros Range, who wore their theatrical multiple fault lines like proud warrior scars withering under the relentless sun. Bakhtiari lived there. In Abadan, the indigenous Arabs served as company serfs, but here it was the Bakhtiari, whose tribal relatives still migrated through with their black tents and sheep and goats and occasional skinny horses. At harvest time, after a sudden short explosion of emerald fire on nearly every inch of field, cliff, and crevice, Bakhtiari men came out of the villages to thresh the wheat and barley with forked sticks and circling tireless donkeys, often with one nostril slit open to allow easier breathing in dust storms. These men wore huge, baggy black pants, heavy wool, darkish suit jackets, pillbox black hats, and on their feet the most primitive shoes imaginable called gives, made of some kind of knotted white ropey cloth attached to a stiff black sole with coarse nails. Or sometimes, instead of the Western style suit coats, they wore thigh length, light colored loose jackets. Occasionally, wandering the hills, miles from anywhere, we'd come across a pair playing a nasally reedy horn, and accompanying big drum. Or more accurately, they found us and wanted to be paid for their time and skill. At night, you notice the hundreds of giant perennial flares burning off natural gas to keep the whole place from blowing up, since they had no way to mine it. The roads we traversed, getting from one encampment to another, in our beetling company taxis had evolved from goat and donkey paths and were wonderfully serpentine at night among the small gray-white gypsum hills, the red, blue, and yellow dancing flame light licking the contours, making everything look very volcanic and prehistoric, the imminent ghost of some dinosaur lurking in the slippery shadows. And our school trips deepened our sense of the ancient, the various Persian Empire capitals of Shush, meaning pleasant, with its ziggurat, and Shustar, meaning more pleasant, where the Karun River thundered through and under the town, driving the mill wheels, turning in cave-like caverns assisted by donkeys before cascading back out of numerous portals where kids dove from the cliffs for tourist reals, and then the grand vista of Persepolis, where one could gaze out into miles of plains while walking in the footsteps of Alexander or the Achaemenid kings of kings, and the tombs of Cyrus and Darius, where the stench of generations of tenant foxes stayed in my nostrils for days. As I later wrote in a poem, we saw how time moved in ripples toward the horizon, shuddering under the noonday sun. It was the home that painted my imagination longest and most deeply, biblical by day, prehistoric by night, and horses, iconic Arabian stallions, filling my waking hours. So that was the place my first place of the dream time. And when I began writing poems, the first ones I kept were poems from that landscape. And then I realized that I was writing those poems because I was sort of homesick. And that brought me up a little short to be homesick for a place that was never mine to begin with. And that begat this poem of farewell to that place. It's the longest I'll read tonight, so you'll have to bear with me. It's called Old Mountains. There were mountains in the old place, the place of old bones. And the mountains were like bones, only browner, sandstone, though sometimes bleached pale as bones. And dark goats moved among them. And the people who grew out of them were like goats, small and dark, and quick when the sun was not pure poison, moving about their business, which was not our business, theirs being soil, which there wasn't much of, ours being oil, which came out of the ground by the ton and snaked through the hills and desert in pipelines inevitable as the azure steel sky itself. Perhaps they were not real mountains, so much as upthrust foothills, craggy plateau a man or goat could climb in a day, stand at the top of, and feel Moses come down from. They were holy mountains, and under the holy mountains was oil that sometimes still made bushes burn, or the Red Sea part for the islands of deep-bellied freighters pregnant with crude. And if they were not mountains, they were at least the high steps of the horseman, grown ghostly with time. And my sleeper's body slept among them, and my dreamer's body, which was only smoke from village chimneys in winter, or the black eyes of the skulls of their huts in summer, saw the quick shimmering emerald of the fields and crevices in spring, the flash of the bright dressed girls of the water hole, their ankle bracelets saucy as the glitter of crime and Salome's eyes, and the black eyes under the black wind of the black chedora billowing around the husks of crones. They were the sacred mountains camped at our outskirts, while our fathers mined oil from beneath them and hardly saw them. But their graves sang to us in the evenings, and the thin smoke of their cook fires rose like ghosts, and they lay down with us in our dreams like beasts, breathing and patient, ours, we thought, as the Persian blue sky swaddled their shoulders, as the black night sky lay down on their backs with its pinprick stars, they rose like continents in the black sea of nightfall, then rose again like the skulls of sacrificial beasts in the dawn. And perhaps our white mothers heard them and started drinking harder, savaging the servants, quarreling with our sad sacked fathers. Distracted in the midnight, they paced cold tiles, their bare feet lisping the hours, ethereal, haughty, silken whisperings. And the mountains were theirs too, and the dirty hands of the servants who needed such scolding. Some absence lurked in their eyes, like the shadows of mountains among the coffee clutches and beer swilling mornings. But we were the children of the mountains, and they entered us as easily as sky, as easily as night. And what they showed us was fire and shadow, dancers under the worn moon. And we saw how time moved in ripples toward the horizon, shuddering under the noonday sun. They moved in us like the spirits of Alexander or Herod, Nebuchadnezzar, Ashurbanipal, Xerxes, or Artaxerxes, slow fires in the waking midnight. And our incongruous fathers waited at the bus stop, white short-sleeved shirts, clip-on ties, and crew cuts. They talked of Oklahoma or LA, Atlantic City or Baton Rouge, but never of the bleached mountains on the hem of whose skirts they stood, dazed in the morning light. Their gaze was too calculated, the sheaves of paper in their briefcases too diagrammatic and impersonal, children of the Depression. Their souls had suffered foreclosure. They had banker's eyes. They're mostly dead now. Copies of Forbes magazine strewn on the night table. And we who were children of the mountains searched nightly on the news for glimpses of the pale, pitiless sleepers. There, behind the reporter with blank banker's eyes, beyond the rolling dust of tanks, bomb blasts, and squalor, the rubble of apocalypse. Nothing there now remembers us but the mountains etched behind our eyelids. Or, sorry, we have joined the absent ones. Nothing there now remembers us but the mountains etched behind our eyelids. I was born into the Jim Crow South, which was a pretty dark place, though, of course, most of us did not realize it at the time. But this poem is written for the best soul I probably knew in my growing up years. My maid, whose name was appropriately Alma, which, can mean love or spirit or soul, and this is just called Alma's House. I keep seeing this muddy, sometimes sun-baked road from Alma's crooked porch on the Negro side of Beaumont, Texas, circa 1955. It's where I stayed when my parents were away, a world of tumble-down shacks and angry young men that Alma kept at bay whenever I was out there. Except for Nick, Alma's husband, who sometimes mowed our lawn, I knew only the women who took me to church in their big white dresses and enormous hats and sang hymns as if they meant them. Nick called me honey and stroked my hair. He was the color of dried tobacco leaves and seemed older and more tired than any man I'd ever known, but also kinder. Maybe he'd once been a great hell raiser, a razor in his pocket and a bottle in a bag like men I later met on trains, trading swigs and stories and a sense of fate hurtling at us out of the night sky. But there was no devil in Nick in my day, only a kind of fatherly Job. They fed me mustard greens and collard greens and okra, dark aromas that made their house exotic with its tilting floors and peeling linoleum, and let me sleep in their bed and play with Alma's nearly blind little black retriever and Nick's skinny, flea-bitten hound chained to his house out back. They taught me to stay out of the way of the gargantuan geese, the real watchdogs, and to feed the chickens and visit Ida, the coffee-colored hairdresser next door who'd do all the neighborhood ladies in her big hardwood living room while everybody laughed and Alma smoked cigarettes, which I'd never seen before. But I never went down that rutted dirt road beyond Alma's house that seemed to go nowhere but into weeds and more collapsing shacks and maybe some swampland nobody wanted. When she died, I was a freshman in college, and Nick wrote asking for money. I sent him $10, half my week's allowance. Sorry, I wrote. Sorry. What seems 1,000 years later, having met the woman of my dreams, the great, beautiful, and brilliant Suzanne Shane, and moving into a lovely house overlooking one of the Finger Lakes, I wanted to come to terms with greenery and snow and all those temperate zone things. So I wrote a long cycle of season poems to kind of try to possess it by running it all across my tongue. And these are a bit shorter poems, a little change of pace. The first two have to do with my son. The first is called The Road Home, November. Twilight needling the eye. The fogged out, whited out road collapsing into goblin namelessness, withering weird trees, half light lure of dog and deer in the treacherous bearded fields, giving in to centuries old, no world silence, head down, nape of the neck, bristling attention to far, star cauldron nothingness, papery skulled, haggard from the hard-voiced night, I come to myself building a fire, webby ochre light, oily shadows, elemental Stonehenge geometry of logs, inscrutable as the star-crossed bones of bison, bruise blotting the clammy walls of caves. Later, my son's raw-edged ancient crying and soft-haired nuzzling. And this one, it's also about him somewhat later. This was one of Sue's favorite poems, and also the favorite poem while he was alive of my first teacher, Dan Hoffman. Um, and it's called Remains. My son guides me up the long hill, squelching in runoff, along trails narrow as goat paths through the trees, to show me the strewn bones of a deer nested in her shed shreds of fur, almost golden, where some wood spirit laid her to rest, and the coyotes and crows stripped her, leaving only a hoof and furred knuckle intact among a clutter of collapsed ribs. He shows me the clean white vertebrae, the pelvis with its odd eye hole, the knees still attached with some last rope of sinew. This is his find. Stumbled on as he tried his new spring legs in a downhill, helter-skelter run, and stopped and stared, and in his 11-year-old mind knew that this was the stuff of running undone, something the receding snow left for him personally, a sign of winter's wait. We eye it together. We go down on our knees to gather pieces of the witchcraft mystery. The gray trees around us are also bones that click and chatter in the wet wind of almost spring. The brown limpid eyes are gone. The crumbling gnarl of spine, once nerved and tremulous, is now only a train wreck the grass will hide in a month's time. We feel the doorway of earth opening. We feel the thinness of our skins and the prickling of short hairs rising. We know it's at the bottom of things. How soon the mayflies will be dancing their measured reels of the evening. And this one was for Sue and me. We had reached an age when I knew we were kind of in the high summer of our lives, and this is called River Time. The hills are green with summer, the lakes cobalt blue and glittering. Whatever we long for in March is here already or forgotten. Your hair gleaming obsidian as always, despite a few white renegades. Your body stretches out like a great cat's or a landscape I never tire of crossing. When I kiss the small of your back, I hear the whisper of desert sands, the rush of young rivers. No one comes back. No one steps twice in the same body. Spring was sun on the daffodils, and the time of the new wide sky, the heartbreaking golds of the giant willows. Marry me, shouted the cardinal in his tall tree, while the goldfinch giggled, I am nothing but light. And now for a change of pace, reaching back in time. As a teen, I left Iran to go to a New England prep school, which afforded a different kind of culture shock. And that's where I first heard Bob Dylan. And this is from a chapter called Euro Dreams, Bohemian Dreams. I had heard Bob Dylan, first during my junior year, when this weird kind of Appalachian belly laugh with trills emanated from the doorway across the hall from mine. The print here is a little faint. It's just a mock-up. Just as the evening study hall was ending, caused, I came to realize, from Dylan coming in on the wrong key in the opening of his 115th dream and having to start again. But it was a stroke of genius for the producers to keep that laugh because it seemed both human and beyond human. At least I had never heard anyone laugh quite like that. Um, but it was infectious, and it kind of sold the whole package for me in a moment. The song was funny, Captain Ahab discovering America in a kind of fever dream, and songs like Mr. Tambourine Man brought literature to the pop song in a way no one could have imagined. But it was in London, on my way back to the States, crossing one of the small circuses, perhaps buying clothes, that I heard for the first time blaring from one of the shops like a rolling stone, and felt the continental plates of my life shift forever. It was like the song was speaking to my organs or in my bone marrow. It said, change, evolve, be more than a cute guy in a trim suit, take a chance, grow a soul. And the next day, sitting on a plane next to a 20-something long-haired kid with a guitar wearing Old Spice, which I thought might be masking the scent of marijuana, which I wouldn't have discerned from big droppings, I resolved, I want to do this. I want to come back next year and hang out on the bustling, youth-invigorated streets of Europe with Napoleon in rags and hear the language that he used. The only question was how to make that happen. And this is from another chapter called Wild to be Wreckage. Only part of my Euro fantasy had to do with the dream of street life. The other part was owning a motorcycle. Years earlier in Honolulu, I'd been in a car when a long-haired, shirtless, very tan motorcyclist with impressive biceps rumbled past. Somehow, he seemed an icon of freedom, years before Bob Seger's wonderful anthem, Roll Me Away, and I wanted that. Consequently, I occasionally wandered a few miles off the Deerfield, the prep school I went to, campus to visit a motorcycle shop where mechanics told horrific stories of surviving crashes. One story involving a guy going 120 feet on his backside and all the surgery that followed, the teller concluding, it's amazing what the human body can take. There were also stories of guys with metal in their limbs or heads. I don't quite understand why that was attractive to me, probably having to do with warrior scars. But years later, when I read James Dickey's Cherry Log Road, I thought he captured it perfectly. And this was the end. Drunk on the wind in my mouth, ringing the handlebar for speed, wild to be wreckage forever. And I got my wish. I got to Europe and I got to be wreckage forever. Um, I had a motorcycle accident in France that kept me in the hospital for most of a year. And it allowed me to spend a lot of time listening to young Bob turning the world on its head. And so many years later, I felt I should write a tribute poem to him. And this is called Talking Bob's Blues. You can't get there from here, though you can go a lot of places. In the switchyard of the mind, you can rearrange a lot of faces. But the scent of her hair and the touch of her lips and the curse of her tongue say you'll bleed from your eyes till the day you're done. When the plain's red dawns stretch out like lies, and the cut glass of the past gives you spiderweb eyes, and you feel like you're crawling through the land of the dead, and know the dream of your life should have stayed home in bed, and you don't want to do what beauty asks, though she's always there in the mirror's masks. Jean Genet in the role of town crier, or the vagabond king disguised as vampire, or the ragamuffin boy who could be anyone, Hank or Woody or the scourge of the sun, deranging the world to see for the first time Mississippi was a state of mind and desolation just a street sign. You can't get there from here, though you jump through hoops. You can dance on the clouds or you can deal from the stoops. Your mama had a sister, her sister had a friend. She wanted to bust out, he wanted to keep it in. And a baby's cry is the willow's wind. You can't even pray without some kind of sin. Walk down the back stairs, slip off in the dark. The devil's face is Joan of Arc's. We might be 40 miles outside of somewhere, but the locals say you can't get there from here. Smoke's been traveling all through the swamps. Says the trees have been whispering the words of Mein Kampf. Innocence cries in even the darkest heart. You can die for a rose or you can die for art, and all kinds of things that were wrong from the start. I got a woman behind my door, says she'll love me, but I gotta be poor. Gotta crawl on my knees, gotta howl like a dog, but if I'm a prince, she'll make me a frog. You can't get there from here, though you toss and you turn, and your dreams get heavy and your eyes start to burn. But there's a place you can get to on down the road where lying's just another kind of truth in code. And an old man playing a Chinese flute says, I've had mine, you can take the loot. The white beard of nothingness grows from my chin, and the next time we meet, we'll all be kin. There's a place I go about a mile from here where I take off my face and examine my fear. The lake shines like a mirror and I cup my ear, and nothing much matters but that the words are clear. There are freight cars passing at old crossroads, and dispossessed creeds and broken codes, and dead end dreams where a life implodes. And sometimes you see her dancing in fire, but you can't sing her back from the land of desire. You can bray like a donkey, you can caw like a crow. There are some kinds of places words can't go. He went down in the valley to sing his song and let the echo decide if he was right or wrong. He let the echo decide if he was right or wrong. After our 35 years in our hillside retreat, tragedy came in the form of early onset Alzheimer's and took Sue very quickly. And I knew no way to cope with it but to chronicle it in poems. Certainly the hardest I ever wrote, especially without her insightful critical input. Uh, it's called Lost Hallways. And those of you who are familiar with disease know that it manifests itself early on in what's called, I think they call it sundown syndrome. The person gets most disoriented at about dusk. So, except for the first poem, all of these are very short, just kind of almost fragments. Around sundown, the wandering. I love you for this house you made and rearranged for 40 years. Paintings quickening the walls, migratory books in piles, and outside fringes of flowers and sprawling jungle grass, all light as your light passes through. Although tonight you claim that phantom house with finer lines of vision, the art more deftly synced, the view under stairs more shadow striking, and cleaner planes to hold the ceiling up. The house you dream I cannot enter. Mine is the one cluttered with old age detritus, messy counters, clothes in heaps. Yours just newer, lighter, though you must ask which door to use, and if it's dawn or night, whether we'll meet tomorrow or next week, and if you'll need your purse. I love you for the lamplit ghosts of songs and poems shared and bodies flared and winged, and say it's here despite the clutter, this house so like the one you dream, but know it's lost to you at end of day, this end of time slipping into ruin, this garden circled place fading into gloom. Today you become the many-headed hydra, saying, "You've never seen where I live," now stalking down our road in multi-tilt dimensions. Will you be safe? Will your anger at my obtuseness keep you watchful for the sudden sweep of fender around our bend? High dudgeon has its amplitude and its confessions, its focus and blindness, kicking free the shackles of insult and guilt. The world old as we are now, who made love to the beat of ancient stones and walked our crooked miles of crooked seasons, lovely in their vanishings. Her laugh. Can Susie come out to play? The child in me wishes to say. Can she dance in the field, twirl her hair in the breeze, maybe kick up her heels, say love as you please, as grass does the light, or the lake takes the storm? Can she flow through the night all liquid with form? Oh, tell me, oh house on the hill, can Susie come out to play, though dusk's come in with a chill and taken her laughter away? Undertow. Where is it the clock ran? How cold the ancient entryway! You see me in two, like a knife knifing the eye. How wise is a mirror! You are too many ghosts to attend to, and make for the darkest of weathers. I feel your manyness, I chase your dissolve. Maybe after a long dive, we will come up for air and remember when we danced. Light was the dance, and the dance was light. O dizzying dish of my demise, dervish of those long ago faded Levi's, I see us still, stark, illuminated in the chill, a chalice stillness in the tottering night. Lost hallways. The music makes you smile and stills my soul. The past drifts back, flotsam and jetsam of a lost treasure ship. Our heroine going down to Davy Jones, her face less mobile but still beautiful and darkly haunted now. I dread the minutes like whip cracks, help you into clothes and down lost hallways, treat you like a toddler till you say, "I can't find my heart. I'm just all tears and nothing else." We ban the news, as every wound becomes your wound, all tears your tears. With no capacity to distance, you crane outside your window, your tribes, the poor, the damaged, and the lost among the skulls of broken cities, a child's doll half visible in the rubble. Our luck runs out like sand through an hourglass. Your beauty once like new fallen snow, now shades to gray, the color of our winter's long months to come. I cannot hold you or let you go. Still days darken, black trees bow and wind. We've lost our way in the worst of seasons, in the whirl of the guffawing crow, our garden gone to seed, our eyes like Homer's fallen heroes going black. I remain perhaps your last plucked flower in the wilt of my will, looking for the door. You can no longer lie down without help, and my anxiety gut tightens and churns. I'm looking for the door in a room without doors, my grief God size and implacable. Who can I bargain with? Once we were shuddering interchangeables, silvery fish in a pod of perfect ballet. Now I move you about like an armload of lumber, your muscles stiff with uncertainty, your face vaguely fearful. I yearn to give birth to you, feel you unfold like our floppy magnolia blossoms in spring, lavish and lovely in their lascivious come-ons. I long for that fluency and fiery freedom against this hardening ossification, this deaf call to stillness. our absence. Stretches out the long hall of a short future, the unsaying of lost conversations, love's erasures and grievances, half smiles, pain groans, night sweats. I love you, I love you, I love you, but can no longer remember the contour of it, the smoke of it, your fire in the quickening twilight. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Sing the demons of my forgetfulness, cursed by my myriad blessings and the silk of your skin. I ease you into sleep. That's the end of that sequence, but I thought I would end with a poem I wrote, kind of recently, um, that I played with. I think it's really one poem, but I wrote it as a series of tiny poems with their own title, but I think they're really all. It's called Outliving You. First Moon. Years ago, when I first saw the moon in a mystical way, and you were far in the future and unimaginable, I began to see poems in that silvery halo, though you were my lure even then, walking home on a dark street, dreaming myself. What was it I sensed in that mirage of significant otherness, the glow of a distant world, the poem and the turn of your hips, chime of your laugh? Years ago now, in this dark night of your absence, spring again. Sometimes I dream your positions in bed, your goddess dances, the you only I knew. Today the blossoms on our tulip tree flop open like hoity-toity ladies' hats on Derby Day. Remember, they made you laugh. An encounter. She says she met you only once, but the bluest sky was coming out of your eyes, and your laugh was a gold trumpet. I want to tell her the orbs of your buttocks in my hands were beauty and truth and happily ever after, but I don't know her that well, and anyway, can't remember her name. But the poems remain, and in them you're dancing. O moon of my memory, O song I sing myself. Thank you, guys.
Ah, Michael. Wow, it was really amazing having read those poems, but hearing you read them, I felt like it was spell casting. You're going to have so much fun with the comments. If people want to unmute, yeah, feel free to do so, and we can spend a moment just saying thank you. That was spell
Awesome.
casting.
It was great. I noticed somebody made a comment in chat. I didn't see who it was about how lyrical the poems were, and I think the original meaning of that word, if you go back far enough, has to do with song. And there was one poem, I think the second to last one, long one, that would be a beautiful song. It's just as musical as can be.
The Dylan one, you mean? Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it was, yeah.
yeah. I knew it was a little. Since he writes songs and I don't, I struggled for a while to try to figure out how to capture something song-like,
Yeah.
and so that was the way I tried a lot of complicated stanzas and things, and then I remembered, no, he often works on a typewriter and he writes these long couplets that really break into ballad stanzas, or will break into ballad stanzas if you want to do it. And so that's what I did. And instead of a refrain, because it's hard to pull off a refrain on paper, I think,
Mhm.
I decided that just having a repeating first line 3 times would be enough, I think,
Yeah,
to imply song.
I think that worked.
Yeah, I was going to say
Congratulations.
it worked, Mike. It
Mhm.
worked. It was
Yeah.
gorgeous. But I think your work in general, sonically, is music. And so much of your writing has movement or dance or music, to me, underneath it all. Does anybody have questions for Mike? Oh, actually, Karen just wrote, "Oh, Mike, you are writing songs. The words and sentiments are the music." And a lot of people wrote that reading was exquisite. It really was just beautiful.
It was.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
Oh, I was
This
going to say,
is the
about
most
halfway through that
speechless.
poem, it suddenly occurred to me to think, are those lyrics from Bob Dylan? Some album that I never got, like a
Well, the
deep
last
cut on
line,
the second side.
the last line is a song he sings, but actually he didn't write that song. I think one of the members of the
Wow.
Grateful Dead wrote that. Silvio, I gotta go find out something only dead men know.
Oh, I think
And
you're
that
right.
ends with right.
Cindy,
Such
you
a
had something you were saying? Sorry, Shamala.
oh no.
Cindy, it sounded like you started to say something and I cut you off. So I was wondering if you had a question.
Me? Are you talking to me?
Yes,
It's
ma'am. Yes, Cindy.
No, I just want to say that was beautiful, and I had read some of Michael's work before the reading. I tend to do that. I look people up to see what kind of stuff they read, and I loved what I read. And this was just, it just the lines were lyrical and passionate, and the language you use is just gorgeous. And I wasn't expecting, that great a reading. So, always great to hear someone you haven't heard before, present their work, and you presented it, Michael, in a beautiful, cohesive way. Makes me
Thank you.
want to buy the book and read more.
I should make mention, I didn't. I read the from the Heat and Hunger. I have a mock-up of it. The book itself, they tell me, will be available from about the 20th. So another week plus. Anyone who wants to dive into that, I think it will be on Amazon, or anyone can contact me on Facebook, and I can arrange to send you a signed copy if you for either of those books. In fact,
Good.
That's what I was going to say. I know people are probably looking towards it. I put the website for Michael in the chat section, along with a connection to Barnes and Nobles where you can buy the book, the one that'll be out. I would just keep in touch, like write to Mike via Facebook for a signed copy. And Cindy, it's good to hear that you got to hear Mike for the first time, and that it inspired you to buy the book. I think it's always a delight to meet a new poet, particularly one, and alchemic is the word that often comes to my mind when I think of Mike. Um, there is something very magical about what he creates. Somebody just said these poems feel like paintings of love songs. I love that, Karen.
paintings of what?
Love songs.
Oh yeah, okay, great. Well, I am very visual. I
Yeah.
tend to see poems, and then I try to find a sound, a first line or something that gives me a hint of the. But I am visual, and I, in sort of exploring my life through this book, I've reflected on certain things. I think part of what gave me an ear is that I'm dyslexic, but I think also I spent so much of my life in worlds where I did not understand the language that was being spoken. So your eyes get very acute then, um, and you also develop an ear for the music of language, And the most disconcerting thing that used to happen to me was picking up a plane on my way back from the East in London, because suddenly when you can understand what everyone else is saying, the banality of it is very disconcerting. It can sound like poetry if it's in a language of someone else, but when you understand that, oh, they're just talking about having a beer for breakfast, and you know, that it loses a lot of its magic.
That's fabulous, and what an insight. And it reminds me of what Shamala wrote in the chat section, that you captured the essence of what it is to be a traveler in other parts of the world. And Shamala, did you want to speak to that? Because I saw you
Oh,
nodding when Mike was talking.
well, so many things. Um, I'm sorry, I'm just stunned at the reading, because meeting a new poet is one thing, but meeting someone who can sound like Dylan or can sound like Shelley, or I mean, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan, and so much of your work is that intense, and to write about a place that is not yours, that you have lived with that kind of passion and love without taking over ownership, but yet with so much intimacy. I'm just so grateful to have heard this reading. And I'm trying to figure out how I can afford to buy 16 books, because the only real thing I have to say is how, and do you
This,
teach
this,
classes? Because I would take them.
this, the look back really contains everything. I, I have 16 collections, but I kept upgrading. When the first poetry reading I ever went to, when I was a freshman at Penn, was by Daniel Hoffman, who prefaced his reading by saying it was Yeats who taught us to write books of poems. And even though I was new to poetry, sort of, I thought that's a great idea. I want to write a book of poems that's like a novel or something. So then by my junior year, I took a course in world poetry that was subtitled the epic, the lyric poem in the epic voice. It was T.S. Eliot, St. John Perse, Montali, etc. But being kind of dyslexic to the core, I think some part of my mind interpolated that as the epic poem in the lyric voice. And I think that's what this book is. It is my epic poem in a lyric voice.
So, so good. I've noticed that our our conversation, a lot of my people that really talk a lot, we've kind of been stunned, and I think that's a lovely thing. And the comments have been more about conversation uh and connection, which is fabulous. Deep connection.
Yeah, well,
Michael, thank
poetry
you.
has that. I think it has that magic capacity to connect. Um, as long as we don't get too obsessed with criticism. I I I can't remember who. Maybe I was reading something written by Berryman or something, who said our job is not to study poetry. Our job is to read poetry. you know, as soon as it becomes a study, it becomes in the classroom again. And um, the classroom has its place, but sometimes I think we over intellectualize uh, the desire to sing, really. You know, to me, poems have always been songs or songs that tell stories. Um,
Yeah.
and That's not very fashionable in an age of deconstruction and all this other stuff, where you have poems that you have no idea what they're about. And that seems to be the point. Yeah.
And I think you have a very good insight there. And there was a period of time in grad school where I remember feeling like unmoved by poetry because my brain and that editor and all that stuff was ruining for me. And I thought, you know what? The whole reason I came to poetry was the sheer pleasure and joy I felt at hearing people and letting that go and going back to that place of enjoyment was so important for me. It's like
Well,
ruining my
I
favorite
I
food.
was a very reluctant academic because of my background. You know, I was slowly civilized through Deerfield and Penn and so on, but it was a slow process, and I was never a great fan of the classroom.
Oh, that just reminded me, I wanted to tell you all this subtitle. Thanks, Mike. For Heat and Hunger, how
Oh,
a rebellious punk got knocked off his trolley and became a poet. Say all that.
I meant to read that out loud. I forgot. You
I
know,
wasn't going to forget.
right. Well, that's what I had intended to say is that one book sort of has the serious in my life, and the other book is more of the non-serious, sometimes even a little racy. Um, but
Oh, it's a spicy one.
okay.
Sad Cajun though. I'm sorry.
I know.
Fabulous. Well, I just want to say thank you so very much, Mike. And we're going to
Well, thank
shift
you
into
all.
open
Yeah,
mic and celebrate
I
more
look
words.
forward.
I have Cal first. I have Cal, Cindy, Regina, Bob, Shamala, and Laura. If I miss somebody, send me a message. Cal?
Okay. Am I going to be able to share screen? Do you mind if I share screen?
Oh, me?
I'm talking
You're
to
muted,
Malika. I
Malika.
think you have to do something so I can save the screen.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I've
Oh,
already done that now, but next time just
good.
let me know in advance and I'll do it ahead of time.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I keep forgetting that. Well, anyway. Here we go. Okay. I think it was last week I read one of the poems that I wrote about chaos after studying that for a while, and this is another one. Some of the words might be similar to what I read last week. It's called Chaos 3I. In theory, it's not empty, a void, or random, but determined like a life, which you can predict for a while, but gets stormy. And even if nothing happens for a long time, that doesn't mean it won't. Formulas from imaginary math use numbers that don't exist, and it comes to haunt you like an old legend of a curse your father's father told your father, who told you. Imaginary, since even if it happens, it could still be an artifact of mind. But that's the point. The brain works on chaos, the eye movements of a schizophrenic, patterns not of the world we see, heart pulsing capillaries extending to fill space like an infinite angular curve cuts closer to the boundary of a finite circle of any size, never touching, never filling. Unpredictable, though predetermined, seeing of new dimensions, a matter of scale, like the perceptions of a painter. Goethe being right, Newton wrong. God not a clockmaker, but an artist. Life an eruption of chaos from a stew and a storm, storms on. If you look one way, a wide empty canvas is still to be created, but look back and the path is filled with imaginary choices, extra dimensions, alternate universes. We might as well accept as having had their day and let them disperse like steam. I thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Make sure you check the messages. Cindy?
Thank you.
You calling on me?
Yes, thanks, Cindy, for reading.
Last week I said I was going to avoid politics, but with everything going on, I think tonight's the night to do 2 haiku. First one, Trump's America, where it seems that any month can be the cruelest. And the second one, post-cataract surgery. So why does Trump still look freaking orange? I'm 2 weeks post-op. There you go.
You Cindy. Oh, that's so good. Yes, we could definitely make t-shirts out of those. Regina, I have you next. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So this is an encouragement for those who are in this new day fight. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua fit the battle for safe passage and the promise, and his God promised he would do it for him. And my ancestors built civilizations and nurtured resources and chanted songs and prayers and wore the mantle of both the colonized and decolonizers and fought and lost and fought and won, chained up, broke free, decided to live, decided to die, made peace, purpose to lie down and get up and sigh and cry, and some even decided to fight for what they had and what they did not have yet, for what they dreamed and did not always receive, for what they believed in even when it did not recognize and believe in them. Arms, legs, skin, face, color, race, intelligent mind in the eyes of the land that could not always see them, him, her as human. Great, 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 great granddaddy Joshua fit the battle, even when it wasn't clear who he was fighting, walking around the walls that would not let him in, trying to save and carve a place in a country that could not move beyond his skin, from the shores through the middle passage on plantations and marginalization. Joshua fit the battle. Through black codes and Jim Crow, Joshua fit the battle. Through evolutions and revolutions, Joshua fit the battle. Before every victory, large and small, Joshua fit the battle. Through dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. Joshua fit the battle. He has already come. Joshua fit the battle, but for grace, Joshua still fights the battle and waits for the walls to come tumbling down forever, forever, forever.
Oh yes, we're waiting for those walls to come tumbling down. And I don't know, Regina, if you and Michael met last time, but I feel like
did.
y'all would.
We
Yeah,
did.
okay. I was hoping so. I'm grateful. I'm glad.
Yes.
I have Bob next.
Okay. Hi, folks. Across the water. Steps across the water that is no longer blessed. To enter the dark and foreboding where the whispers become real. And there is no longer a place to dream.
Oh, that's a haunting one. Where the whispers become real. That's sticking with me. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Y'all are doing some interesting things tonight. Oftentimes I start to hear a theme in the open mic. This is fascinating. Shamala, I have you next. Yeah.
Anyone who's dropped a seed in the ground or planted a cutting knows that making things grow is hard. California's farmers produce half to two-thirds, half to three-quarters of this country's food, depending on what particular kind of food you're talking about. And three-quarters of our farmers are undocumented. This is a love song to one of them. It's called White Gold. The best California raisin is no more. Its creator, friend of the creator, gone by the grace of God, far away to safety, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. You know why. I pray for his safety, for his loss of a good farm, diligently nurtured, vineyards of grapes, and orchards filled with the best incarnation of the best grapefruits in the world. Ora Blanco. Why they and his innocent round face and little English, spoken with smiling heart, makes me now think of the Madonna and of Grace I do not know. I know I missed him during the holidays. Prayed at Christmas that the Mother of God carried him and all he loved to safety. Gifted him somehow, somewhere, again, land, resources, people with whom to create again those perfect best raisins, moist and full of so many notes of honest, deep flavor. Also, the sun-bright orbs of Oro Blanco. I will probably never see him again. Never exchange awkward sentences of friendship, part Spanish, part English, wholly fractured, language that made every syllable doubly precious. White gold brought by a brown man, brown as that precious babe cradled in the mother's arms that first Christmas. Those graces, all too precious to be understood or cherished by eyes and hearts blinded by another kindless whiteness, void of grace. Kingdoms come and kingdoms go, though. While the precious fruits of the field, the Creator's touch, the Creator's true servants, humble in this world, even suffering in this world, are still the richest, best of us all, and make out of every soil, and make out of every color, grow out of every soil, the true, the only Oro Blanco, true white gold.
Thank you,
Stunning.
Shamala.
Thank you.
Yeah. Check the comments.
20 years in California, within a couple of miles of 5 different wine growing regions. Seriously, this man produced the best raisins I have ever eaten in my life.
The way you described it made me want one. I'm like, I've never seen that. And I love that it's so particular. That's, I know it's true, but it's the way you wrote about it. I have Laura and then Karen as our final 2 readers.
Fabulous. Hey, everybody. Okay, this is called Not Yet Broken. Not certain if something was amiss in the nursery, my mother, kneeling in the kitchen, scrubbing and weeping from her too soon pregnancies, suffers, listens, but does not stir. She used to be a delicate vessel with tiny bones that barely knew gravity, dark hair that flew back in the wind, spread like a blackbird's wing. She was a sacred doll. No longer, gone the creamy skin, the firm breasts, fragile bones gave way to plump arms, a heavy tread, slower movements. And yet, a Buddhist smile still crosses her face. She's no broken doll. Thank you.
That was gorgeous, Laura. Very, very lovely. Yep, you got to check the comments. Karen, my beautiful co-host, my backbone.
Oh gosh, this has been such a beautiful evening of poetry. Whew. Okay, this is a poem. Laura, sorry, you've heard this one because you were with me when I was writing it. This is a cobbled together poem with some words pilfered from Bianca Stone's Elegy of Clothes, and some words pilfered from Michael Heddich's The Angels, and some words just wanting to be any of my own words that might land well. This is words again, swatting at bees. My secret bruised lips being barely alive again, and harboring such wicked wild habitats, everything, not even mine, detonates. Breezes, boulders, as dreams, as cheap wine, stains, as stick-on fingernails, peeling mica, pulled from the choking gray dust of the dry creek's rusted tumbler, fractured shale, mining for anything, even like a poem, with a pen taken up like a mallet, taken to a faux brick chimney, reeking like elegy for closing up the screen porch here, like bees at swatting. Again, words.
Oh, it's fabulous. Yeah, pen taken up like a mallet.
That
That
was
was resonating
great.
with a lot of people. Perfect poem to end tonight. Thank y'all so very much. And Mike, once again, thank you for coming here and reading to us
Well,
and
thank you
sharing your
all for
work.
coming too. These were moving. Regina's poem, I think, should go national. I think it is the poem of the moment.
Bless you.
For real.
I think she needs to make an album for us. I
Yeah,
do.
I'm in DC. I got to put up with the army parade. That's not really the army birthday parade. I'm hiding.
Yeah.
It's
Stay
like
safe.
I hope a bunch of horses trample on them.
we can
I
only
thought I
hope the
heard it was
caissons
going-
will go rolling over him, but
I thought the weather was going to be bad. Like, did you hear that it was going
it's
to be
supposed to rain
bad
this
weather?
weekend. So maybe it'll rain so much there won't be any fireworks or flyovers.
Mhm. I'd like to see his orange spray tan running down his face.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yes.
And
Thank you for that image.
I just got, oh gosh,
I'm
such a good
sorry.
image with that.
Clip that out.
I love you, Regina.
I'm gonna pause